Hello, everyone. Welcome to Frog Talks, the inaugural Frog Talks, the beta. We're excited. We have a huge audience. Great speakers. We wanted to bring together some movement makers, some movement doers, some thinkers, people who have great ideas in order to inspire all of us to think about movements or starting our own movement. And I want to actually ask all of you if you'll stay. I know many might need to leave. Stay to the end because we are going to launch a beer movement. And you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be pretty awesome. So, movements. You know, we're living in the age of movements. Of course, you look around this country and around the world, we are living at a time where there are movements everywhere, all over the place. And movements are like a force. They can be a force for good, or they can be a force for evil. It's a bit like Star Wars. How you use the force depends on you. And that's important because the truth is every single one of you in this room, every single individual, every company, every brand, every entrepreneur can create a movement, can identify, crystallize, align with, and spark a mass movement that reaches deep inside people and turns them on. It's like you reach inside, you flip a switch, and you're activated. And tears just appear. And boom, everything changes. And for good or for bad, nothing is ever the same. And the reason that's important is because we're living in a world with huge challenges. And sometimes we need to stop and realize that we need to say to you, here's an idea you need to hear. Or more importantly, here is something that you need to do. Or here is something that you need to do differently. Movements are based on ideas, or emanated from ideas, but they're grounded in action. That's what we're asking people to do. And all of you are movement makers. You can be movement makers because you are dreamers of dreams. And that's where it starts. And today, this whole event is intended to inspire you. And we have some extraordinary speakers who are going to give us some really great insights. Now, this lovely creature on my right is here to remind us of our attention span. We look at the goldfish who has an attention span of 8 seconds. Human beings, we have an attention span of less than that. So the reason why we have him here is to remind us why we started Frog Talks. We want to have the shortest talks on the planet. Big movement ideas, super short and sharp talks. So now we're going to talk about a topic which is important in today's world, which is leadership. In a world where we wonder, is there any leadership left? How do we look to the future and be a leader? What do we have to think about? What's important and what isn't? And to talk about that is a lady who is truly inspiring, who I've had the pleasure to know for many years, and has written or co-written a book called The Leadership Mind Switch, and is going to spend some time talking about it now with us. So welcome to the stage, Kylie Wright Ford. Bravo. And I'm going to give you a clicker.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. I'm glad to be here. Before I start my frog talk, I wanted to tell you a few things personal about myself. So the relevance of these moments that I share with you will become apparent later, but let's just go with it for the moment. So I'm Kylie. As Scott mentioned, I was born in Australia on a sheep farm, actually, way out west of Sydney. Just 5,000 sheep, my family and I. So I've lived in a few places. Most recently, I live in Atlanta, so down in the south. But I'm from the deep south, where I grew up in Canberra and Brisbane. I ended up in Oxford to do my MBA and then moved to London, got transferred to New York. And so I've lived in a couple of different places. They've all shaped who I am. I'm married, wonderful guy, 16 years. He's Australian also, and we have 2 children of our own, 6 and 16, and I have a wonderful stepdaughter. She's 23. I don't have a job, although like many, I need an income and healthcare. I don't drive a car, but I live in Atlanta, so work that out, because anyone who's been there knows it's horrific from a traffic perspective. So I subscribe to Clutch.com. It's an on-demand service. You get to have a Jeep one week, a Mercedes the next week, a Corvette the week after. So that's a little bit about me. How I earn my income is I freelance for 3 or 4 different companies that inspire me. I select them carefully. And I'm on my 3rd one-year sabbatical in the last 15 years. So I do have serious jobs from time to time. 8 years, 7 years, and most recently I was Chief Operating Officer of a company based in Atlanta. So what does all this mean? It means I have the work ethic of a boomer. I have the desire of freedom like a Gen X. I have the passion for technology, Clutch.com, etc., of a Gen Y or a millennial. And I have the attention span of our little friend right here, the Gen Z. Let's park all of this and let's move on for a second. So I co-authored this book called The Leadership Mind Switch based on observations from my own career. So I spent 10 years working in executive networks where we curate communities of executives for the idea exchange purpose. And I observed a couple of things. The world is moving very fast. Leadership teams are not moving fast enough. My frog talk is to every leader in the room, and whether you're leading an initiative, a program, a family, a movement, a company, or a country, this is a call to you to actually think about whether you're moving as fast as the world around you, or whether you're harboring legacy thinking, whether you're that boss that cares about FaceTime, whether you're that Luddite that is not embracing technology fast enough, and make a mind switch if you're one of those. Just as yesterday we had light turn into night, that's the mind switch idea. And actually it's beautiful to talk straight after Pauline because she introduced my talk perfectly about the Industrial Revolutions. So we're currently in the 4th Industrial Revolution, and she set me up perfectly. We didn't even collaborate, but we're currently in the 4th Industrial Revolution. First one, steam engine, etc. Second one, mass production. Third one, digital, as we spoke about. 4th is a fusion of technologies, physical, biological, and digital. The Fitbit is the best, easiest example of this. And it's really big. So we are currently moving, according to McKinsey, who are far smarter than me collectively, at 300 times the scale of the first Industrial Revolution. Wow. Now, sure, it might have been 300 years ago, but even just go back 50 to 100 years, are our leadership teams and other people you work with, are you moving at 300 times the scale of you folks who started the first Industrial Revolution? Or are we inching along, still hosting those boring meetings, still using the same software, still relying on FaceTime as a measure for how you lead your people? The big difference in the 4th Industrial Revolution is demographics and technology. The leadership mind switch is about how these things are affecting the way that we lead. They're the 2 biggest changes. 50% of the workforce is going to be millennials. We've probably heard that by 2020, just a few years away. And they're bringing incredible welcome and unwelcome changes, depends where you are. And we have technologies now that enable us in all kinds of ways. Eric Schmidt said that every 2 days we create as much information as we did from the dawn of mankind to 2003. Information is not a differentiator anymore. Creativity and judgment and the human element is what is the differentiator now. But are leaders keeping up? Are we keeping up? Global leadership is a roll-up of all of our leadership. It's just like everything else. You only end up with the results at the top that you expect by being the best leader that you can be. So I want to highlight one characteristic that we mention in the book of 4, and one behavior of 4 that we mention in the book. The characteristic I chose tonight is based on where we are, I think, in the world right now. I chose enlightenment. Enlightened leaders are super curious. They find the person that kind of challenges them and makes them scared. They hire at the most diverse possible population that they can find. They read things that challenge them, and they never come in with legacy thinking, biases, or prejudices about the person they're walking into the room with. Enlightened leaders make for a better workplace because they bring out the best and they can relate to everyone across generations and styles. That is the key here. The mastery, the skill that we need to master, in my view, in this revolution, I've already adopted the revolution term, is that of leading across generations and styles, not just generations. So effective leaders are known more by the questions they ask than the answers they give. This is true of enlightened leaders. They're not sitting giving you a directive because information is a commodity, as we saw with the quote with Eric Schmidt. They're asking the question because they hire people smarter than them and ask smart questions. So the behavior I mentioned is dynamic. I mentioned demographics and technology advances are the big differences in this fourth industrial revolution. And so what that has done in the workplace of the future has shifted the power from employers to employees. The freelance economy is here. It is not going anywhere. If you're in a traditional company and you're still using the same hiring methods and hiring the same people and doing the same things you've done for the last 20 years, and as a side note, I watched Office Space for the first time the other night on a flight from Boston as part of a research, and I was laughing hysterically, not because it was that funny, but because it could have personified so many experiences. Just yesterday, a report came out about 1 in 6 people hating their jobs by 35. We just haven't moved that far, which is really, really sad. So 54 million people in the US have chosen the freelance economy, and they're not just drivers or people who deliver things, if that's what you think they are, or people who create things or engineers. I'm one of those people, and I have 20 years experience in knowledge professions. So things have really changed. And if you're a leader who relies on people to help your movement, company, country, world, then you need people to work for you. And increasingly they're opting out based on this legacy thinking and the things that we're doing that really annoy them. So we have a couple of choices here, and I started by talking about myself and a few personal things about me. And the point of that was, I hope you saw that I was making the point where working down this path of trying to identify people by when they were born. We're entering the workforce earlier. We're leaving the workforce later due to technology. Demographics have changed. People are complex. The skill to master is leading across generations and styles if you really want to make an impact. And the people I admire most of all is that those I have met during my career is people like this that actually are as enlightened as you can possibly be and really make a big impact. Thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Kylie.